Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopichana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopichana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Astotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Astotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Isopanisad Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Damodar Kumar, I have a humble request. Move your camp over to there so I can see you. Thanks. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Okay. On the 6th day of May, 2019, in San Diego, we're reading from Sri Isopanisad, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are reading, beginning Isho Mantra 1, Mantra 1 of the Isopanisad. And we have the verse on the board. Isha Vasamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyang Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bunjita Magwadhak Kasya Swidhanam. Okay. Now just a note, these Upanishad mantras, they don't have the same kind of strictness of meter that you find in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So you have to kind of roll the punches. Don't try to fit it into something that's... This one is pretty straight, but as we go on, you'll see. Isha vasamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyang jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita Magvadakasya svidhanam Ishavasam sarvam Yatkincha jagatyang jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita Magvadakasya svidhanam Ishavasam sarvam Yatkincha jagatyam jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita Magvadakasya svidhanam Ishavasam sarvam Yatkincha jagatyam jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita Magvadakasya svidhanam Ishavasya sarvam Yatkincha jagatyam jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita Magvadakasya svidhanam Ishavasya sarvam Yatkincha jagatyam jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita Magvadakasya svidhanam. Jamal. Ishavasya sarvam Yatkincha jagatyam jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita Magvadakasya svidhanam. Isha, by the Lord. Avasyam, controlled. Idam, this. Sarvam, all. Yatkincha, whatever. Jagatyam, within the universe. Jagat, all that is animate and inanimate. Tena, by him. Chaktena, set apart quota. Bhunjitaha, you should accept. Ma, do not. Gridha, endeavor to gain. Kasya svit, of anyone else. Dhanam, the wealth. Translation: everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Purport: Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down to the perfect disciplic succession of spiritual masters, beginning with the Lord himself. Since he spoke the first word of Vedic knowledge, the source of this knowledge is transcendental. The words spoken by the Lord are called apaurushaya, which indicates that they are not delivered by any mundane person. A living being who lives in the mundane world has 4 defects. 1, he is certain to commit mistakes. 2, he is subject to illusion. 3, he has a propensity to cheat others. And 4, his senses are imperfect. No one with these 4 imperfections can deliver perfect knowledge. The Vedas are not produced by such an imperfect creature. Vedic knowledge was originally imparted by the Lord into the heart of Brahma, the first created living being. And Brahma, in his turn, disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples, who have handed it down through history. Since the Lord is Purnam, all perfect, there is no possibility of his being subjected to the laws of material nature, which he controls. However, both the living entities and inanimate objects are controlled by the laws of nature and ultimately by the Lord's potency. This Isopanisad is part of the Yajurveda, and consequently it contains information concerning the proprietorship of all things existing within the universe. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So we'll continue the purport in a little bit. But these two paragraphs of the purport kind of give a little summary of what's gone before. This whole business at the beginning, the first paragraph, summarizes the introduction. The introduction is all about how the Vedas are beyond the defects of human knowledge because they're not spoken and not given by a mundane person who has these four defects. So it's always good to review that, why we need an access to a supernatural or a paurusheya. A paurusheya actually means superhuman, infallible source of knowledge if we are desirous of actually practicing a process that will get us out of this material world. As Prabhu points out here, and he points out extensively in the introduction, everybody in this world, human beings included, have these four defects. The first defect, I like to think of them in order, kind of, there's an order to them. You have imperfect senses. No one can deny that. Obviously, our sight is limited, our hearing is limited. All the senses are limited. So if the knowledge that we're gleaning and that we're basing our philosophy on and our aspiration for work in this world is based on that kind of knowledge that we get from our senses, clearly it's going to be imperfect. You have imperfect senses producing fallible knowledge, fallible knowledge, and then you make a conclusion on the basis of that investigation. This is called the scientific method, or we call it the aroha panta, the ascending path of knowledge. And actually, when you just look around at the world that we live in, we are living in a world that is a construct based on a vast accumulation of knowledge, of material knowledge. This little iPad here. I mean, how much research had to go in the first computer, electricity, and all of these programs that these programs have been writing for 40 years now, 50 years, whatever it's been, goes into making this little piece of technology. The science of building a building. This building was built a while back. There's a whole lot of things that they've learned since then, so that buildings are sturdier, so they keep the heat in and the cold out better, whatever, all kinds of things. And what to speak of automotive engineering? You see what I'm talking about? Just the roads, just to build a road like that we just take for granted. There's a whole lot of knowledge and accumulation of knowledge, engineering, university degrees involved in that. So this is the artificial world that we live in, which is made by human beings. But none of that knowledge and none of that technology and all that is actually going to solve the essential problems that we face as human beings, as living entities, that we can even understand as human beings. And that's, to summarize it, birth, old age, disease, and death. That everything that we cherish in this world, all the importance we put on it, and relationships and everything, it's just like a bubble in the ocean. Prabhu explains the beginning of the second canto. Some wonderful verses there, and the second canto begins. How we're coming together with other people and establishing relationships. It's just like, perfect example here with the ocean. You go down there and you see these waves coming one after another, and you can see so much foam. Foam is made up of bubbles that get together, And it's just, those bubbles come together for a few seconds and then separate. And that's actually what the nature of everything in this world that we have. It's all just a insubstantial phenomena that we place extreme importance on, but that ultimately is just evaporates into oblivion forever. And so whatever knowledge we glean from this method of investigating the senses, we make mistakes. Those mistakes are compounded when we're making them, everyone else is making them. It turns into an illusion. The most prominent of which is, obviously, who knows what the most prominent illusion is? I'm the body, right? Everybody's thinking that. What to speak of the lower animals, the human beings, 99.99%. Because that's just the way it is. The soul is completely enmeshed in this body. The consciousness, We're very sensitive to the senses and the emotions, especially human beings, And we completely identify with the gross body and the subtle body especially. So that's a huge mistake, and it turns into a compounded illusion because all the other blind people are telling us the same thing, beginning from, the first day you come out of the womb, it's enforced. And so that on the basis of that mistake, this whole material world is built. So it's a vast phantasmagoria that we take to be real. So the entrance into this world of the infallible, either the Lord personally or his representative, who can give this superhuman knowledge, the gurus, the sadhus, they're simply, I want to reclaim this word, so forgive me, they're channeling perfectly. They're perfect media. Prabhu would call the word via media. The word is actually media. And the ones who we really trust are completely transparent. They're not distorting at all. They're simply making it available to us in a way that we can understand. Primarily for us, most of us here, the English language. Without Prabhupada translating, we would be still in the dark. Everything would be in Sanskrit, Bengali, whatever. So that this is the nature of knowledge here, and Prabhupada summarizes that in the first paragraph. And he starts off, Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down to the perfect and typical succession of spiritual methods, beginning with the Lord himself. This is the thing. Is that Krishna, he enlightened Brahma from within the heart. Remember, he's meditating, he doesn't know what's what. And then he had the first thing is the tapa, that's also coming from Krishna. So he's intelligent enough to know what that means, perform austerities, purification, meditation, then he's getting enlightened in the heart. And then all the knowledge is there, and then he passes it on, down to Narada, down to Vyasa, and all the way coming back there. So this is what Prabhupada came to give, is this knowledge, to transform, to cause a revolution in the impious lives of this misdirected civilization. That's us. And he gave the knowledge, and he gave the method to become receptive to the knowledge, the chanting, without knowing anything about anything. If you just chant, then the heart becomes purified. Krishna from within becomes pleased, and if you're fortunate to have a contact, of course, with the pure knowledge, you become receptive to it. You become just from within the heart, and that's your opens up the door to everything else. Is you're chanting, you're hearing the holy name, and you're hearing the knowledge, and that's what we're doing right now. So then Prabhupada talks about, he gives a little reference to the previous verse, which is the invocation. Remember, Om Purnamadah Purnamidam, right? The Absolute is complete in and of itself, and even though so many complete units come, such as this universe, he remains the complete balance. He's not diminished by creating all of these complete units. Why is it a complete unit? Because we have everything we need here for the process of self-realization, God-realization, to get out of it. Now, if we don't take advantage of it, that's our problem. But the gurus, sadhus, and the Shastra is there to help us to actually utilize the great gift of human life and all the other things that we've been given to escape this world and go back to the spiritual world. So Krishna, the Supreme, is not subject to the laws of nature. And he's always enjoying his passive in the spiritual world, but he's also concerned with us, and so he expands himself, or sometimes he comes himself to give us real knowledge, and his lila is also subject matter for discussion from the devotees. So any comments on those or questions on those couple of just paragraphs? Otherwise we can go on. Okay. Yeah. Media is plural of medium. When Prabhupada was talking about the via media, the transparent via media is actually a singular word. It means a way, a path. It's not exactly what Prabhupada was thinking of. He was thinking of medium as a transmitter. So that's what's been changed in the book. You have something?
Yeah. Also, when you said channel, like you said, you want to reclaim that word, channeling. So maybe you could explain what I mean, I have an idea of what generally people think of that is channeling, you're channeling someone, but maybe you could explain like the general definition that people have.
Yeah.
And then also what you mean by channeling.
I don't know how many years ago, I don't hear it so much anymore. Maybe I'm out of touch. I remember, where was I? I think I was on an airplane. I was reading a Newsweek magazine or something. And there was this story about this, I think it was a woman, who in Oregon somewhere up in the Northwest, who had established this society, and she was claiming to channel some great sage, I don't know, sometimes they know the names, Maitreya or something, And she wasn't giving authentic philosophy or anything, but there was, as they do often, mishmash of this or that, this or that. And she had some charisma, and she was able to gather followers. She had some wealthy people who sold everything and moved to the commune and the whole thing, you know what I mean? And so for a while there, this is in the 90s sometimes, early 90s, there were others who took up this. It's basically a scam, You go into, maybe you roll your eyes a little bit, you get bubbles coming out. I don't know how they do it, But they have some kind of institution. It's worth a try, right? Maybe I can get and you claim to follow, you speak some kind of mishmash philosophy. And if you can fool enough people, you can have an organization. They're probably long gone, this one, But so that word channeling was used to mean, it's not me speaking, but it's, Antioch from, millions of years ago, or thousands of years ago in Greece or something, or India. So this, but the principle is something that we use. Prabhupada is insisted, repeatedly, is that I'm imperfect, but the knowledge I'm speaking is perfect. I'm simply repeating what Krishna said. Now you know that he did more than just repeat, but everything he spoke was on the basis of the Gita and the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that's why, his lectures are always enhanced, by quoting verses. Prabhupada wanted us to do that. He sometimes explicitly said that. That's why he spent so much time putting an effort in putting in the synonyms and the transliteration so we can chant the mantras of verses. He called them mantras sometimes. And learn this, because these are the words of God or his direct representatives. They're all sacred and potent in and of themselves. So that's what I mean by channeling. We really are meant to be channeling. And when you channel, when you're simply speaking what the authorities have said and you're following carefully, that's where you have the potency. Prabhupada prayed. This wonderful dramatic scene. He just gets off the boat in Boston. They landed there first, and he's looking at the skyline, and he sees the modes of nature, obviously, and so he writes this Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma. This prayer basically means Krishna consciousness in America, And he's praying there that somehow he will be able to speak in such a way that it will enter their hearts and will transform them, And he's directly giving us the insight into how he's going to. He said, "Well, you make me dance, make me dance, make me dance." In other words, you inspire me from within to say the things that will impress them. And it wasn't, a slam dunk right away. He tried here, tried there, made a couple of steps forward, then he had to leave and this and that, till finally he found the perfect audience, the LSD crowd, who were already like, their sense of this world, they saw there was something more, whatever. There was, many of them were hopelessly, damaged. But, the early crew, there were enough who were together and was receptive to the message and the chanting. And so you had the channeling coming through, and it was meeting a receptive audience, and it was transforming it. And they themselves, when Prabhupada left the 26th 2nd Avenue and went to San Francisco, they were suddenly thrown into the deep end of the pool. You mean I have to give class? Brahmananda, he said, okay, I guess we have to. Prabhupada wants us to do it. Swamiji wants us to do it. So they began quoting. I'm sure they're doing a lot of quoting from Swamiji, and so forth, but they were able to do it. So that's the what's going on, and that's why this channeling is really good. If you become it's just another word for medium. A medium. What is the internet? It's a medium, and it's not supposed to add anything. It helps us to get so many things. There's so much nonsense on there. But somebody's producing something. We have newspapers, television, radio, and now the internet. And it's a medium. And if a transparent medium, then it gives what has been gotten. So there you go. Okay, should we go on? Sure.
I don't think you were implying that there's no such thing as subtle beings not speaking through some people.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
You're just saying often they are.
Yeah. They're using that, misusing that genuine phenomenon. Okay, now this verse is all about proprietorship, and that's the rest of the purport here. The Lord's proprietorship over everything within the universe is confirmed in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 7:4-5, where the para and apara prakriti are discussed. The elements of nature, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, all belong to the Lord's inferior material energy, apara prakriti, whereas the living being, the organic energy, is his superior energy, para prakriti. Both of these prakritis, or energies, are emanations from the Lord, and ultimately he is the controller of everything that exists. There is nothing in the universe that does not belong to either the para or the apara prakriti. Therefore everything is the property of the Supreme Being. Because the Supreme Being, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the complete person. Now we're back to a little bit of the Om Purnam. He has complete and perfect intelligence to adjust everything by means of his different potencies. The Supreme Being is often compared to a fire, and everything organic and inorganic is compared to the heat and light of that fire. Just as fire distributes its energy in the form of heat and light, the Lord displays his energy in different ways. He thus remains the ultimate controller, sustainer, and dictator of everything. He is the possessor of all potencies, the knower of everything, and the benefactor of everyone. He is full of inconceivable opulence, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. One should therefore be intelligent enough to know that except for the Lord, no one is a proprietor of anything. One should accept only those things that are set aside by the Lord as his quota. The cow, for instance, gives milk, but she does not drink that milk. She eats grass and straw, and her milk is designated as food for human beings. Such is the arrangement of the Lord. Thus we should be satisfied with those things he has kindly set aside for us, and we should always consider to whom these things we possess actually belong. Take, for example, our dwelling, which is made of earth, wood, stone, iron, cement, and so many other material things. If we think in terms of Sri Isopanisad, we must know that we cannot produce any of these building materials ourselves. We can simply bring them together and transform them into different shapes by our labor. A laborer cannot claim to be a proprietor of a thing just because he has worked hard to manufacture it. In modern society, there is always a great quarrel between the laborers and the capitalists. Now, you have to remember when this was written. This was written in India in the 60s. And Prabhu, he was serializing it in his Back to Guided magazine, which was coming out kind of sporadically. He got up to, I think, the 12th verse, and he brought the rest of it with him in a manuscript form, which when I revised this book in 1992, I had that original manuscript, Prabhu's BTGs that he did, and then the actual unpublished manuscript, the first printing of 69, the revision in 1974, and then I had all those sources in 1992. I did some adjustments to bring it up to what we have now. Okay. So in modern society, there's always a great quarrel between the laborers and the capitalists. The quarrel has taken an international shape, and the world is in danger. Men face one another in enmity and snarl, just like cats and dogs. Sri Isopanisad cannot give advice to the cats and dogs, but it can deliver the message of Godhead to man through the bona fide acharyas, or holy teachers. The human race should take the Vedic wisdom of Sri Isopanisad and not quarrel over material possessions. One must be satisfied with whatever privileges are given to him by the mercy of the Lord. There can be no peace if the communists or the capitalists or any other party claims proprietorship over the sources of nature, which are entirely the property of the Lord. The capitalists cannot curb the communists simply by political maneuvering, nor can the communists defeat the capitalists simply by fighting for stolen bread. If they do not recognize the proprietorship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the property they claim to be their own is stolen. Consequently, they will be liable to punishment by the laws of nature. Nuclear bombs are in the hands of both communists and capitalists, and if both do not recognize the proprietorship of the Supreme Lord, it is certain that these bombs will ultimately ruin both parties. Thus, in order to save themselves and bring peace to the world, both parties must follow the instructions of Sri Isopanisad. Well, that's worth a comment. The Prabhupada, when he first began writing his own magazine, Back to Godhead magazine, that was in 1944. And the World War II was still raging. Prabhupada enlisted articles from various persons who were, the end of the war was kind of clear, it was happening, but there was a tremendous feeling of devastation and a sense that we have to do something different, And so I think he had one Christian theologian write something in there, and various politicians. He enlisted articles from some prominent, maybe the archbishop or bishops in UK, and there was this Prabhupada had about moral rearmament. I remember that phrase when I was growing up, moral rearmament movement, And so there's this sense of, what have we done? 60 million people killed, and Europe devastated, and the atom bomb blowing up. People were really in a great sense of, well, how could we prevent this? And of course, out of that came the United Nations. They had the League of Nations after World War I. Well, that failed. Okay, now we'll do it better. We'll have the United Nations. And Prabhupada, I don't know if he makes a point here in this book, but often when he spoke, he would talk about how the United Nations is not going to bring peace. All that's happening is that the flags are increasing. The implication being that there's still all of this sense of my space and my nation and so forth. And has there been peace? I mean, I grew up in the 50s, and I even remember hints of the Korean War. I was only about 5 or 6 at that time. But, then the Vietnam War and so many wars still going on, and many of them involving the United States. And all over this same principle. This is my land, this is my property, and now that we're powerful, we'll go exploit others. We'll get all the, the labor, and we'll get the natural resources, the oil. Many of these wars have been fought over the oil. Exactly what Prabhupada is talking about here. This sense of false proprietorship. He ends this purport. I think we can get through it. It's kind of short. With injunction, all the problems in the world are this sense of false proprietorship. And Krishna consciousness, you can see one of the essential principles is that to understand, as Prabhupada points out in his purport, that everything is a result of the Lord's energy. He's created it, even the things we created. Okay, we have this building. How did he create this building? Well, first of all, there's the raw materials, the stone, the cement, and the metal and everything else. And there's also the intelligence that we use in order to bring them all together. Where did that come from? That's just another energy, isn't it? One of the subtle energies listed in Chapter 7. So everything is given to us. We forget the person who's given it to us, and we create something or we exploit something, and we claim this false proprietorship, which of course creates enmity with others who want to try to get what we have. And this is the source of all the Kali in the Kali Yuga. Kali means, the quarrel and war. And Prabhupada points out, now we've escalated. Part of the improvement is the weaponry. The science is first of all employed in weaponry, because that's for defense and for aggression. So all of the cutting edge science and the computers and everything else is first being used by the Defense Department in the United States. $1 trillion a year? They say it's 750 billion, but that doesn't include the Department of Energy, which runs the nuclear bombs, believe it or not. They are in charge of the nuclear bombs. Okay. $1 trillion a year wasted. Eisenhower knew that. He went through he was the main general that we had, the American general in World War II. Then he became president. And he said, every bomb that we build, every ship we build, every tank we build is taking money away from using it for the benefit of the people. That's one less school build, one less. He was absolutely correct. And that's what Prabhupada is talking about here, is that all of this struggle, and he's predicting, he says, if we're not going to adopt this principle of the Isopanisad, everything is owned by the Lord. We're entitled to the quota, but not to this vast accumulation, billionaires, multi-billionaires, 1/10 of 1% running everything. That's exactly opposite to this principle. And if we recognize that things are controlled and owned by the Lord, then we'll naturally understand the principle of using it in the Lord's service. And that's this building, it's made of cement and everything else, but it's used in the Lord's service, so it's transcendental. And it uplifts. Someone walks into the building, and then of course the sound is going, the devotees are maintaining it. But everything here reminds you of Krishna, of God, the books, the sounds, the tastes, everything. So it's an outpost in which Krishna is reaching out to us. And it's our job as stewards, not owners, but stewards of the temple, to make it as clean as possible and to actually keep up the standard of the sounds and the sights, and of course the deity worship. That's a whole department. Same idea. So that's what this verse. Everything is owned by the Lord. If we understand it, the Isopanisad begins with the word Isha. Many Upanishads deal with Brahman, as the kind of impersonal. But there's this Upanishad, of course, Gopal Tapani Upanishad, most famously, directly with Gopal, with Krishna. But here, this is one of the reasons we have the Isopanisad, because it's telling about the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. All right, let's just finish this purport, and then we can discuss if there's more discussion. I forget where I was. Human beings. Human beings are not meant to quarrel like cats and dogs. They must be intelligent enough to realize the importance and aim of human life. The Vedic literature is meant for humanity and not for cats and dogs. Cats and dogs can kill other animals for food without incurring sin, but if a man kills an animal for the satisfaction of his uncontrolled taste buds, he is responsible for breaking the laws of nature. Consequently, he must be punished. The standard of life for human beings cannot be applied to animals. The tiger does not eat rice and wheat or drink cow's milk, because he has been given food in the shape of animal flesh. Among the many animals and birds, some are vegetarian, and others are carnivorous, but none of them transgress the laws of nature, which have been ordained by the will of the Lord. Animals, birds, reptiles, and other lower life forms strictly adhere to the laws of nature. Therefore, there is no question of sin for them, nor are the Vedic instructions meant for them. Human life alone is a life of responsibility. It is wrong, however, to think that simply by becoming a vegetarian one can avoid transgressing the laws of nature. Vegetables also have life, and while it is nature's law that one living being is meant to feed on another, for human beings the point is to recognize the Supreme Lord. Thus one should not be proud of being a strict vegetarian. Animals do not have developed consciousness by which to recognize the Lord, but a human being is sufficiently intelligent to take lessons from the Vedic literature and thereby know how the laws of nature are working and derive profit out of such knowledge. If a man neglects the instructions of the Vedic literature, his life becomes very risky. A human being is therefore required to recognize the authority of the Supreme Lord and become his devotee. He must offer everything for the Lord's service and partake only of the remnants of food offered to the Lord. This will enable him to discharge his duty properly. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:26, the Lord directly states that he accepts vegetarian food from the hands of a pure devotee. Therefore, a human being should not only become a strict vegetarian, but should also become a devotee of the Lord, offer the Lord all his food, and then partake of such prasadam, or the mercy of God. Only those who act in this way can properly discharge the duties of human life. Those who do not offer their food to the Lord eat nothing but sin and subject themselves to various types of distress, which are the results of sin. Bhagavad Gita 3:13. Now here, this wraps up. The root of sin is the deliberate disobedience of the laws of nature through disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. Disobeying the laws of nature, or the order of the Lord, brings ruin to a human being. Conversely, one who is sober, who knows the laws of nature, and who is not influenced by unnecessary attachment or aversion, is sure to be recognized by the Lord, and thus become eligible to go back to Godhead, back to the eternal home. Om Tat Sat. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any further discussion on these points?
For the cow, but for the human beings, that kind of knocks out the vegan idea.
Yeah, yeah. And of course the calves get some of the milk, but most of it is for the human being. Yeah, there it is. Much of the vegan impetus is because of the desire for not supporting the slaughter, you know. And of course, protected cows. I haven't had the great opportunity to drink much of that milk from, you know, protected cows, but I've been told that it's a completely different substance. When the cows are blissful, they're happy, they know they won't be killed. Prabhupada even mentions that somewhere. I've heard of a lecture. You've just been in New Vrindavan, and he was glorifying the quantity of milk that's produced is greater, and the quality is also greater. So that's, that's civilization. Depending on cows and the land, simple life, and high thinking. Without simple living, high thinking, without the high thinking, you can't be satisfied with the simple life. But you can see that if you're, you know, cultivating knowledge of the Vedas, you're absorbed in the Shastra, you're chanting Hare Krishna, you can be very blissful with a simple life. Kirtan beginning in the morning and the evening, you know, preaching engagements, Harinam. It's satisfying. You know, you realize how little you can get on. Anyone who joins the Brahmacharya ashram, it's simple. You know, so many things we think we need, you actually don't need. And what we need more than anything, you realize, is the holy name. That's completely satisfying. So if people don't understand that, then they're always dissatisfied. They never have enough. You know, and then the capitalism means exploitation and constant growth. Well, I have news. We have a finite earth, and everyone can't be a successful capitalist and keep growing and growing and growing the economy and industrialization. Everyone in China is going to drive a car, even you know, and the efforts to have renewable energy, you're never going to keep up with the unlimited desires of people to have more and more. There has to be a simplification of life. That's what this verse is about. Be satisfied with your quota, not, you know, constant dissatisfaction. Capitalism means to make you dissatisfied. So you'll keep buying and buying and buying much more than you actually need.
Yeah, the one word that encapsulates it is greed.
Greed, exactly. There's two things. You know what the stock market is based on? Two things, wonderful things. Greed and fear. The price is such, maybe it'll go down. Oh, what's the news? Oh, I got to sell. And fear. Oh, now the price is down. Now let's make some money. Buy. Greed and fear. But Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, Lobha, what does Krishna says the three gates leading to hell? Trivadam nadakasedam dvaram na kama, Krodha, tata, Lobha. Greed is a natural result of kama. So there's it. You had something? Yeah, take the mic.
Jabbing me, huh? Back. I was going to say that you brought up about milk, and interesting enough, when Prabhupada, he was in his last days here in this world. He was coming to America. He didn't make it to America, but he was on his way to America.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, he was going to go to Gita Nagari.
Yeah.
So Prabhupada liked that idea.
Well, that I think was associated with his statement, which he made in that last year, that only half of my mission is completed. Varnashram Dharma has to be established, and that requires agrarian community. Yeah. Yeah.
that we don't want to exploit or harm the innocent cows.
Yeah.
If it were instituted, it's kind of like that man talking about Shraddha. It's a Vedic principle. Morality is a part of human life, should be a part of religion, but when religion gets in the way of Sanatana Dharma, which is what Daivi Varnashram is,
Yeah.
This whole purports about recognizing the proprietorship of Krishna and serving him. So without cow protection, there is no Daivi Varnashram. You have to have the cows and the milk and the sacrifices and the Brahmins, and it's a complete package, Go Brahmanya.
Yeah.
If you don't have the cows and cow protection, then you've just wiped out the ability to implement what is necessary for human peace and prosperity.
And one of the principles there, and we'll end here, is when you have the cows, well, you're going to have a lot of bulls too, and so you have to have a way of engaging those bulls, the oxen, and that means simple life, not tractors and bad, agribusiness and all of that craziness. So it automatically means simplify. Huh? You have many bees, yeah, buzzing, and we'll end with one verse about the bees. Upon his chest is manifest the mark of Goddess Shri, and there to rest the best of wreaths, a temple for the bees who worship him by singing hymns that limn his loving play. Limn, L-I-M-N, means to describe. Who worships him by singing hymns that limn his loving play, while Shri Hari most gleefully acclaims the way they pray. For Brajas love mad milkmaids, and for all the Brahmins' wives, Shri Krishna is the ultimate good fortune in their lives. His sandal paste anointed limbs bedim the full moon's glow. Unto the lotus feet of Shri Hari I bow down low. Hare Krishna, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. That's from Rupa Goswami's Stavamala, and I put it into a little poem.